Hey, what's up, guys? Souter the Savage back. So, before the video starts, I just want to let you know that me and my boy Hayden, we started a brand new podcast called Copying and Souter Podcast. If you don't remember who Hayden is, you may have seen him in hockey and basketball stereotypes. Well, me and him decided to start a brand new podcast. We've been thinking about doing this for a while, but we finally started it up. It would mean so much to me if you would go check out our channel. I'll be leaving the link in the description below. We are uploading a brand new podcast every Monday. So be on the lookout for that. It's just going to be like weekly sports updates, mainly on basketball, hockey, football, and baseball. And we'll throw in a few other popular sports like the Masters is going on. We'll lightly mention that. And of course, F1 racing, because Hayden's super into F1 racing. But anyways, make sure you go check it out. It's Copying Souter Podcast. Definitely go take a look at it. Now on to the video.
So what is up, guys? Souter the Savage back, and today we are here with NFL Week Deontay Harris predictions. So anyways, as always, if you just want to see certain matchup, timestamps are in the description below, so make sure you click on that match that you want to see. Last week I did okay. I think I was around 500. Had some matchups that I missed, but anyways, got 14 matchups to get to. So without further ado, let's get this video started. And now you have our Thursday Night Football matchup between the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. Starting out with the Cardinals, what a victory! You almost lost the Bills, but Kyler Murray to DeAndre Hopkins was just amazing. Anyways, Kyler Murray, he threw for 245 yards, 1 touchdown and a pick. He was okay, but where it was at the rushing game. Over 200 rushing yards. 100 yards from Kenyon Drake, 61 yards and 2 touchdowns from Kyler Murray, and 56 rushing yards from Chase Edmonds. So a great game like that, but DeAndre Hopkins, the Hail Mary, it was just Kyler Murray was scrambling, avoids the sack. There was a deep ball for DeAndre Hopkins. He's got 3 Bills around him, Jordan Poyer, Tre'Davious White, and I forget the other guy, but somehow he mossed all of them and came down with the ball and with the game-winning score. But he also had 7 receptions, 127 yards, and of course the game-winning touchdown, followed by Dan Arnold with 34 yards. But it's nice, I'm just going to call him Darnold because I just like to say that more. But anyways, in terms of defense, you didn't do well against the Bills, but that's what I expected because, this is your major flaw, the defense. And then the Seahawks, people are saying these guys are Super Bowl contenders. I mean, they've taken a massive step back, lost many, many games. Lost, I think they're on a 3-game losing streak, so that's not good. Russell Wilson, he threw for 248 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 picks. He is not cooking like he was to start the season. In terms of rushing, he was the leader with 60 yards, followed by Alex Collins with 43 yards and a touchdown. In terms of receiving, the leader was Tyler Lockett with 66 yards, Fred Swain with 37, Greg Olsen with 33, DK Metcalf against Jalen Ramsey just got shut down as he only had 28 receiving yards. That was pretty much it. Your defense still as bad as ever as it gave up over 400 yards to the Rams. So the narrative of this game is 2 amazing offenses with defense as their biggest liability. Seahawks are favored to win this one by 3, but I'm going to say that the Cardinals pull off the upset and win this game. And now you have our very first 1 o'clock matchup between the Tennessee Titans and the Baltimore Ravens, a rematch of the 2019 AFC divisional game, well, at least one of them. And, everyone just remembers this because the Ravens were heavy favorites, but the Titans pulled off the shocking 28-12 upset. Anyway, starting out with the Titans against the Colts on Thursday Night Football, you guys were terrible. Ryan Tannehill, he threw for 147 yards, 1 touchdown, and no picks. So he was meh. Derrick Henry, he was the lead rusher with 103 rushing yards. That was pretty much it. Your lead receiver was Corey Davis with 67 yards, followed by A.J. Brown, who had 21 yards, and Jonnu Smith with 14. So, yeah, the offense just wasn't there. The defense had some trouble against the Colts. I mean, their running game is great, but their passing game is inconsistent, and this was one of the times when their passing game was good. And also, the big thing that cost you was special teams collapses, as in the fourth quarter, you had 3 straight collapses. A muffed punt, a blocked punt return for a touchdown, and a missed Stephen Gostkowski field goal. But anyways, then the Ravens, they lost to the Patriots. They are not what they were last year. Lamar Jackson has taken a massive step back, as he had 249 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. He's just taken a massive step back in general this season. But in terms of rushing, your leader was Jackson with 55 yards, Gus Edwards with 42 yards, and that was pretty much it. In terms of receiving, your leader was Willie Snead with 64 yards and 2 touchdowns, followed by Mark Andrews with 61 yards. And that was pretty much it. Like, the offense, like, had some trouble, but it was a rainy day in New England, so I would expect that. Your defense did well, like, the secondary did well against the passing game, but the rushing game, you allowed 173 rushing yards, so, yeah, you can't be doing that. Anyways, the Ravens, they are favored to win this one by 6, but, just like last year in the divisional game, I'm going to say that the Titans pull off the upset. And now you have our very next match between the Carolina Panthers and the Detroit Lions. Starting out with the Lions, you beat the football team. You made it way closer than it should have been, so that is a concern. You won 30-27. You blew a 21-point lead, but Matt Prater pulled out a 59-yard game winner, so I'm not that impressed. Anyways, Matt Stafford, he threw for 276 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks, so he was very good. In terms of rushing, DeAndre Swift proving that he was a great pickup as he had 81 rushing yards. But in terms of receiving, you don't have Kenny Golladay, but Marvin Jones Jr. has done a great job filling him in the void as he had 96 yards and a touchdown, followed by DeAndre Swift with 68 yards and a touchdown, and Marvin Hall with 61 yards and a touchdown. But anyways, your defense had trouble against the Washington football team, but they're a pretty good offensive team. They're still inept because they're in Washington, so their football team in the past few years has just been utter trash. And then the Panthers, you fell apart to the Bucs. Teddy Bridgewater might be out for this game, so that really hurts you guys, but last game he was just not good. Had 136 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. In terms of rushing, Mike Davis is the leader. Did not do anything as he only had 32 rushing yards. But in terms of receiving, your leader was DJ Moore, proving that he is still one of the more underrated receivers with 96 yards and a touchdown, followed by Robbie Anderson with 21 yards. And that was pretty much it. Your defense, you fell apart to the Buccaneers, but they're one of the better offensive teams in the league. And for you guys on defense, in the past couple of videos, I've been saying, you're a defense that has potential, just needs some more time, needs a little bit, you just need to fix up some issues, and you'll be good. So, yeah. That's pretty much it. So, with no real idea if Teddy's going to be playing this week, I'm just going to give the Lions the victory here. And now you have our very next matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Cleveland Browns. Oh, geez, my bad. Anyways, Philly, god damn it. You lost to the Giants. It was just a terrible game that you guys played. Lost 27-17. Carson Wentz, he threw for 208 yards. Just ineffective. The rushing game, though, was pretty good with Miles Sanders as he had 85 rushing yards, followed by Boston Scott with 63 yards and a touchdown. In terms of receiving, Richard Rodgers was the leader with 60 yards, followed by Jalen Reagor with 47 yards. Greg Ward had 39 receiving yards, and Dallas Goedert in his first game back, he was 33 yards, and that was pretty much it. Your defense could not stop the Giants, could not stop Daniel Jones. You didn't even make him fumble once. He didn't turn the ball over once, so that is a legitimate shocker and panic time for you guys. But anyways, then on to the Browns. You beat the Texans. Baker Mayfield, he threw for 132 yards, no touchdowns, and no picks. He wasn't that great, but the rushing game was where it was at. Nick Chubb came back, and he had 126 yards and a touchdown. Should have been 127 yards and 2 touchdowns, but of course he rushed out. He basically ended the game. He could have ran into the end zone for a touchdown, but he just chose to run out at the 1-yard line just to cap off the game. But Kareem Hunt, as the number 2 guy, he had 104 yards, and that was it. In terms of receiving, your leader was Rashard Higgins with 48 yards, followed by Jarvis Landry with 29 yards, and Kareem Hunt, who was okay in the receiving game with 28 yards. The defense, you did well against the Texans, but at this point, they're rebuilding, and that's pretty much it. They're going to be into cap hell soon, so I was expecting you to pull off a victory. But anyways, the Browns are favored to win this game by 2, and I'm going to say that they win and cover the spread. And now you have our very next match between the New England Patriots and the Houston Texans. Starting out with the Patriots, well, you beat the Ravens, so you guys are slowly coming back, so I'm not going to count you guys quite out yet. Cam Newton, he threw for 118 yards, 1 touchdown, and no picks. But Jacoby Myers was the other big man in the passing game as he had 1 pass for 24 yards and a touchdown. In terms of rushing, you guys combined for 173 yards. So that's very good. Damian Harris had 121 yards, followed by Rex Burkhead with 31 yards. But the only one to have a rushing touchdown was Cam Newton as he had 21 yards and a touchdown. In terms of receiving, still no Julian Edelman, but Jacoby Myers had 59 yards, followed by Rex Burkhead with 35 yards and 2 touchdowns. So the defense, you kept the Ravens in check, but it was also a rainy game, so I would expect that to happen. And then the Texans, man, against the Browns, you guys were just absolutely ineffective. Deshaun Watson threw for 163 yards and a touchdown. Duke Johnson, in replacement of David Johnson, he was okay. He had 54 rushing yards, followed by Deshaun Watson with 36 rushing yards. In terms of receiving, your leader was Randall Cobb with 41 yards, followed by Brandon Cooks with 39, and then Will Fuller with 38. So the offense was kind of inexistent. So was the defense. I mean, the secondary did well. I mean, it's the Browns. It's Baker Mayfield. They only threw for 132 yards. But you guys completely fell apart to the rushing game of the Browns. But that's what happens. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, best running back duo in the NFL. And nothing can stop them. But anyways, the Patriots, they are favored to win this one by 2. But I'm going to say that the Texans pull off this victory. I'm going to say that the Texans pull out the upset. And now you have our very next matchup, a rematch of the 2018 AFC divisional matchup between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Starting out with the Steelers, you beat the Bengals, 9-0, so I'm impressed. Especially after your shit show in Dallas. I had some questions, but against the Bengals, all those questions kind of went away. Ben Roethlisberger threw for 333 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no picks. James Conner and Benny Snell Jr. just could not really get anything going. He only had 44 combined rushing yards, so that's not that good, but the big 3 receivers for you guys just completely tore it up. Deontay Johnson with 116 yards and a touchdown. Juju Smith-Schuster with 77 yards and a touchdown. And then Chase Claypool with 56 yards and a touchdown. So good game all around on the offense. Defense, you did a good job handling against the Bengals. 2 fumbles forced, which you recovered, so very good. And then the Jaguars, you played up to your competition at first in Green Bay, and then you just completely fell short, 24-20. Jake Luton, he threw for 169 yards, 1 touchdown, and a pick. James Robinson was the big man of the rushing game. He's the only guy who actually rushed for the Jaguars with 109 yards. DJ Chark, he had 56 yards, followed by Keenan Cole Sr., as he had 47 yards and a touchdown, but he also did have a 91-yard punt return. So that's pretty good. And then Chris Conley had 43 yards. So that's pretty much it for you guys. The defense, you fell apart to the Packers, but, a fully healthy Packers squad, I would expect a lot of teams to fall apart to. So I can't really fault you for that. But anyways, the Steelers are favored to win this one by 10.5, and I'm just going to say that they win and cover the spread. And now you have our very next match between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Washington football team. Starting out with the Bengals, man, against the Steelers, you were just absolutely inexistent. Lost them 36-10. Joe Burrow, he threw for 213 yards, 1 touchdown, and no picks, so he was okay, but against that defense, I wasn't expecting much. In terms of rushing, it was pretty split between Perrine, Williams, Giovanni Bernard, and Williams, so they all combined for 139 yards. There was really no number 1 back. But in terms of receiving, your lead guy was T. Higgins with 115 yards and a touchdown, followed by Tyler Boyd, who had 41 yards, and that was pretty much it. You had 2 fumbles that you lost, so that also hurts. And your defense fell apart to the Steelers, but you know what? The Steelers, they're a great team. I would expect your defense to fall apart to them. And then the football team, Alex Smith almost did it. He almost got his first victory since his gruesome injury, but he didn't, as he fell apart to the Lions, 30-27. First half for you guys was terrible. You did erase a 21-point deficit, but you still fell short. Alex Smith, he had an amazing game through for 390 yards, followed by Antonio Gibson. In terms of rushing, he had 45 yards and 2 touchdowns. The rushing game was not much just because you guys were down for most of the game, so I could expect that. Terry McLaurin, if he's on a real team, he'd be the top receiver in the league. Most underrated guy, as he had 7 receptions for 95 yards. He also had 27 rushing yards, which is nice. Logan Thomas, he also had 66 yards, followed by Isaiah Wright with 59 yards. And then Alex Smith, he did a very good job kind of splitting the ball around all the other receivers on Washington. So honestly, a good game from you guys on offense. Defense, like I said, just fell apart to the Lions. They're a good offense, so I can see that happening. The Washington football team is favored to win this one by 2, but you know what? I'm going to say that the Bengals pull out this victory as Alex Smith. I'm going to say that he gets his first victory on Thanksgiving against the Cowboys. It would just be the ultimate narrative. So I'm going to stick to that narrative that he shocks the world and gets his first victory on Thanksgiving. But this week, Bengals win. And now you have our final 1 o'clock matchup between the Atlanta Falcons and my boys in the New Orleans Saints. Starting out with the Falcons, well, this is what a season's like for you. Terrible start. People are saying just tank and just get get a better draft pick, but then you play up to your potential. And the worst thing about you guys, you always finish either 500 or sub 500. And that's the worst thing for you guys because it's proving that nothing's wrong with management when there's a lot of things that are wrong with your team, especially the defense. But anyways, Falcons, they pulled off a victory in Week 9 over the Broncos, 34-27. Matt Ryan, he threw for 284 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick, so he was pretty good. Todd Gurley, he ran for 53 yards and a touchdown. Your lead receiver was Zacchaeus, as he had 103 yards and a touchdown, followed by Hayden Hurst with 62 yards, and Julio Jones with 54 yards and a touchdown. The thing about your defense is you're only good in the first half, as you held the Broncos to 6 points within the first 3 quarters, and then you gave up 21 points in the fourth quarter, but you still pulled out the victory. And then onto the Saints. You know, stop me if you've heard this before. Drew Brees gets injured mid-game. We bring in the backup, and he doesn't do too well. Does that sound familiar? That's what happened with Teddy Bridgewater this year, and that's what's going to be happening with Jameis Winston. Actually, I don't even know if he's going to be starting because apparently the Saints were going to go with Taysom Hill, but now like Sean Payton's saying like he's going to keep the starter secret. I think it's going to be Taysom Hill who starts. Be fun to see. But anyways, Drew Brees threw for 76 yards and a touchdown. Jameis Winston had 63 yards. So, you know, the quarterbacks, like, the passing game was kind of ineffective, but the rushing game was pretty good. Latavius Murray with 57 yards, Taysom Hill with 45 yards, and then Alvin Kamara with 15 yards and 2 touchdowns. That might not be too good, but he had 83 receiving yards and a touchdown. Michael Thomas, I think he's just going to break out against the Falcons. I mean, since he came back, he's been kind of ineffective. He only had 27 receiving yards against the 49ers, and Deontay Harris had 24 yards. So, yeah, the defense, we did well against the 49ers. Their rushing game we did well against. Had a little bit of trouble with the passing game, but we got our defense back together, and we've capitalized on their special teams collapses. So, good job for the Saints. We're favored to win this one by 3, and I'm going to say that we win and cover the spread. And now you have our very first 4 o'clock matchup between the Denver Broncos and the Miami Dolphins. Starting out with the Dolphins, you pulled off a good victory against the Chargers. You guys could actually be legitimate contenders for the AFC East. I don't think you're going to win the division, but I think you're going to sneak into the wild card. Tua Tagovailoa was all right. He had 169 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. In terms of rushing, you did not have Myles Gaskin, but Ahmed was pretty good with 85 yards and a touchdown. In terms of receiving, it was pretty split, but the lead receiver was Jakeem Grant with 43 yards and a touchdown, followed by Mike Gesicki with 40 yards and Devontae Parker with 31 yards. So the defense, you did a good job against the Chargers. Like, you held them to 21 points. You had one really good play on special teams, and that's pretty much it. And then the Broncos, you lost to the Raiders, 37-12. There's questions that Drew Lock may not be the future for the Broncos. Because against the Raiders, he was terrible. Had 257 yards, 1 touchdown, and 4 picks. Melvin Gordon, he ran for 46 yards. He was just absolutely ineffective. Only 66 combined rushing yards on the day. But in terms of receiving, Jerry Jeudy was the main guy with 68 yards, followed by Tim Patrick with 61 yards, and KJ Hamler with 50 yards. But the only guy to have a touchdown was Deshaun Hamilton with 33 yards and a touchdown. But anyways, the defense, you did well against the passing game of the Raiders, but fell apart to Devontae Booker and Josh Jacobs. So that's not a good look for you guys. The Dolphins, they are favored to win this one by 3.5, and I'm going to say that they win and cover the spread. And now you have our very next match between the New York Jets and the LA Chargers. Starting out with the Jets, in Week 9, you almost beat the Patriots. You came so close, but you fell short, 30-27. Joe Flacco in the first half was absolutely surgical against the Patriots, but the second half he just fell apart. He had 262 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Rushing was led by Frank Gore. He had 46 yards. But in terms of receiving, I was expecting Jameson Crowder to be the big guy. He only had 26 yards and a touchdown because the big man was Brashad Perriman with 101 yards and 2 touchdowns, followed by Denzel Mims with 62 yards. And that was pretty much it. Your defense did well against the Patriots in the first half, but the second half, you completely fell apart to them, especially in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, that's what held you back from winning. And then the Chargers, you fell short against the Dolphins. I expected it. Herbert, he threw for 187 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. He was decent. The lead rusher for you guys was Kaleem Ballage with 68 yards. And, yeah, that was pretty much it. Receiving was pretty split. Keenan Allen, he had 39. He was the lead receiver with 39 yards and a touchdown, followed by Mike Williams with 38 yards. Kaleem Ballage, he also followed up with 34 receiving yards, and then Hunter Henry had 30 yards and a touchdown. So the offense was okay. The defense fell apart, like had some trouble against Miami, but I could totally expect that because Miami is a team that's rising. So I'm excited to see what they got. Chargers, they are favored to win this one by 9. I'm just going to say this, like Justin Herbert's just going to go on a tear and just completely silence the Jets as the Chargers are going to win and cover the spread. And now you have our very next match between the Indianapolis Colts and the Green Bay Packers. Starting with the Packers, you kept that game way too close against Jacksonville, but you still won 24-20. Like I said, it was just way too close at the end. Aaron Rodgers, he threw for 325 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. In terms of rushing, Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, they combined for 76 yards, so they were like decent. And in terms of receiving, you would be surprised that Devontae was not the number 1 guy. It was actually Marquez Valdes-Scantling, as he had 149 yards and a touchdown. But Devontae Adams still played well, as he had 66 yards and a touchdown. In terms of your defense, you did okay against Jacksonville. I mean, you did well against the receiving game, had a little bit of trouble against the rushing game, but you just held on for the victory. And then the Colts, a lot of people put you aside against the Titans on Thursday Night Football, but you pulled out a good victory, 34-17. Phillip Rivers had a great game as he threw for 308 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. In terms of rushing, you got a great running back by committee, but the top guy right now is Nyheim Hines as he had 70 yards and a touchdown. In terms of receiving, Michael Pittman Jr. was your lead guy with 101 yards, followed by Nyheim Hines with 45. And then Phillip Rivers did a good job kind of like spreading the ball around. Guys were kind of getting like equal receptions and were pretty well equal in receiving yards. So that's pretty much it. The defense did well against the Titans. I mean, you did have a little bit of trouble with the rushing game, but you completely shut them down in the passing game, so that's very good. And of course, like the big difference maker was the special teams collapses by the Titans. But anyways, the Colts are favored to win this one by 2, and with how strong their defense has been, I'm going to say that they win and cover the spread. And now you have our final 4 o'clock match between the Dallas Cowboys and the Minnesota Vikings. Starting out with the Cowboys, you almost did it in Week 9. You almost beat the Steelers, but you fell up short, 24-19. Garrett Gilbert, as the quarterback, he wasn't bad, but you're probably going to get Andy Dalton back this week. Anyways, Gilbert threw for 243 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. In terms of rushing, Tony Pollard was the lead rusher with 57 yards, followed by Ezekiel Elliott with 51. So it was a pretty decent running game. In terms of receiving, CeeDee Lamb was the lead receiver with 71 yards and a touchdown, followed by Amari Cooper with 67 yards and Dalton Schultz with 48 yards. So, like, a good game from the offense. The defense, you did well in the first half, but, like, the fourth quarter, you just completely fell apart to the Steelers. So that's kind of where I'm just holding you back from saying, that's what holds you back from almost doing it. And then the Vikings, Kirk Cousins finally got his first victory on Monday Night Football with a 19-13 victory over the Bears. He threw for 292 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Dalvin Cook was the lead rusher with 96 yards, followed by Justin Jefferson in receiving with 135 yards, followed by Kyle Rudolph with 63 yards, and the only guy who brought in the touchdowns was Adam Thielen, as he had 43 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. The defense, you beat the Bears. I'm not that shocked. Like, whether it's Foles or Trubisky, both guys are terrible options under center for them, so I'm not shocked that you beat them. But anyways, the Vikings are favored to win by 7.5. I'm going to say that they win and cover the spread. And now you have our Sunday Night Football match between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders. I almost said Oakland Raiders. I still get that mixed up every now and then. But anyways, starting out with the Chiefs, Week 9 against the Panthers, you guys barely pull out a victory, but you still won. Patrick Mahomes, he threw for 372 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no picks. The rushing game, you guys only rushed the ball 11 times. Clyde Edwards-Helaire only had 14 yards. And yeah, like the only other guys to have rushing yards were Tyreek Hill, Le'Veon Bell, who both had 8 yards, and Patrick Mahomes, who had 6 yards. Anyways, but in terms of receiving, your leader was Travis Kelce with 159 yards, followed by Tyreek Hill with 113 yards and 2 touchdowns. And those were like the big guys, and everyone else was kind of like, didn't quite live up to it. I mean, McCole Hardman had 48 yards, Darrell Robertson had 34 yards, and yeah, that was pretty much it. Your defense, you had trouble against the Panthers, but, they're a young, hungry offense. Like, they're young and they're on the rise, so I would expect that. But anyways, and then the Raiders, against the Broncos, you just completely silenced them. Derek Carr, he threw for 154 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, so he was not that great, but Didn't really have to do too much as Josh Jacobs and Devontae Booker completely carried that offense. Jacobs had 112 yards and 2 touchdowns, followed by Devontae Booker with 81 yards and 2 touchdowns. Lead receiver was Darren Waller with 37 yards, followed by Henry Ruggs with 31, Hunter Renfrow with 30, and that was pretty much it. Your defense, you did well against the Broncos. You picked off Drew Lock 4 times, and you did force 1 fumble. So 5 total turnovers. Definitely would show some hope for you guys. But, Chiefs, they're favored to win this one by 7.5. I'm going to say that they win, but don't cover the spread. And now you have our final matchup, Monday Night Football, between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the LA Rams. Starting out with the Rams, going up against the Seahawks, I was expecting this to be just an offensive showdown. It was not. You just completely shut them down. Jared Goff, he threw for 302 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. In terms of rushing, you guys combined for 106 yards between Cam Akers, Malcolm Brown, and Darrell Henderson. As Akers had 38 yards, Brown had 33, Henderson had 28, and Goff had 4, and Woods had 3. But in terms of receiving, that's where it was at. Josh Reynolds was your lead receiver with 94 yards, followed by Tyler Higbee with 60 yards. Cooper Kupp had 50 yards, and that was pretty much it. Your defense caused Russell Wilson to turn the ball over 3 times with 2 picks and 1 lost fumble. So good job to you guys there. And then the Buccaneers against the Panthers. I was expecting a big victory. Tom Brady, he threw for 341 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. Ronald Jones had 192 yards, but 50% of that was from 1 rush, as it was a 98-yard rushing touchdown. So I'll give him credit because that's pretty good. But that was pretty much it for rushing. In terms of receiving, your leader was Chris Godwin with 92 yards, followed by Mike Evans with 77 yards. Antonio Brown is slowly coming back, had 69 yards and no touchdowns. Gronk had 51 yards and a touchdown, and Brate had 31 yards and a touchdown. So, good game overall on offense. The defense, you had a little bit of trouble with Carolina at the beginning, but eventually you shut them down as you forced a pick. So, good game by you guys in general. The Bucs, they are favored to win this one by 3.5, but with the Rams and their defense, how they've been doing recently, I'm going to say that the Rams pull off the victory. And that is going to wrap up my video for today. Thank you guys all so much for watching. If you want to see all my other prediction videos and all my other Saints recaps, links to all that will be in the description below. As always, me and my boy Hayden, we just started off our new podcast. Make sure you go subscribe to Copying and Souter podcast, and that you also check out our first podcast. Next one's coming out on Monday, so be on the lookout for that. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel, comment down below who else you got, who you got winning this week, who's your upset of the week, who's your lock of the week. Make sure to follow me on Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok at Souter the Savage. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. Who Dat Nation is